Before I tell you how I fell in love with a woman who was already someone else's wife, let me warn you, this story might change the way you believe love works. And if you're someone who believes love always arrives at the wrong time, stay with me till the end. You'll understand why destiny sometimes whispers louder than fear. And while you're here, don't forget to like the video and subscribe so these stories keep finding hearts like yours. Her name was Elara, the wife of one of the wealthiest merchants in the coastal town of Thorn Bay. I had heard of her long before I ever saw her. People talked about her beauty the way travelers describe sunsets, as if they're unsure whether words can capture something so breathtaking. But no one ever mentioned the sadness quietly tucked behind her smile, the loneliness hidden in the shadow of a marriage built on business, not affection. I arrived in Thorn Bay as a traveler, carrying a bag of handmade crafts I hoped to sell at the local market. Life had been simple but honest, and I enjoyed moving from town to town, meeting new faces and learning new stories. But I didn't know that this town was about to become the place where my own story would take a turn I never expected. The first time I saw Elara was at the marketplace. Her husband, Master Aldrin, stood tall and proud beside her, his voice loud as he haggled with traders. Elara, meanwhile, stayed quietly to the side, her fingers brushing the edge of a silk shawl as if she wished she could disappear into it. And then she looked up, and our eyes met. It was strange, the way something shifted within me. Her gaze was soft but filled with something deep and unspoken, like she was silently begging someone to notice she was drowning beneath a calm surface. I shouldn't have stared, but I couldn't look away. She didn't either. Later that day, she approached my stall. I felt my pulse speed up, though I pretended to adjust the display of wooden pendants so she wouldn't notice. She stopped in front of me, tracing a hand over the crafts with sincere admiration rather than the polite, forced interest expected from someone of her status. "These are beautiful," she whispered, and her voice, soft, warm, felt like a touch I hadn't been prepared for. "Thank you," I replied. "You're the first person today who's called them that without bargaining first." She laughed, a sudden sound like wind chimes in a quiet room. But the moment was brief. Aldrin called her name sharply, and she flinched, apologizing with her eyes before stepping away. Days passed, and she visited my stall again. And again. Always alone. Sometimes she bought something small. Sometimes she came with no intention of buying at all. But every time, she lingered, as if the few minutes she spent with me were the only moments she could breathe freely. I began to learn little things about her. That she read poetry late at night because it was the only time her mind wasn't watched. That she loved the smell of the ocean but rarely got permission to walk there. That she dreamed of painting but had never been allowed to pick up a brush. And worst of all, she confessed that she had never truly been loved, not even by the man who vowed to protect her. In return, I shared my own fears, my own scars, my own wandering heart. And with each shared truth, the invisible thread between us pulled tighter. One evening, when the sun melted into the horizon and the marketplace emptied, she approached with trembling hands. "I shouldn't be here," she whispered. "But I wanted to see you. Just, once more today." I reached for her hand without thinking. She didn't pull away. Something passed through us then, quiet, powerful, undeniable. That night, we walked along the deserted shoreline. Elara's laughter mixed with the waves as if she belonged to the sea, not the golden cage she lived in. And there, under the fading light, she confessed what I had been trying not to say out loud myself. "I think I'm falling in love with you," she breathed, her voice breaking. My heart clenched. "Elara, you're married." "I know," she said with tears in her eyes. "But I've never been loved. Not truly. Not until you." For weeks, our connection deepened in stolen moments, hidden notes, shared glances, soft touches hidden beneath the folds of fabric. But secrets have a way of echoing louder than whispers, and Aldrin eventually noticed the change in his wife. His suspicion turned to anger. One night, he confronted Elara, shouting accusations she didn't deny. He demanded to know who had stolen her loyalty, who she had given her heart to. Ilara refused to name me, but Thornbay was a small town. It wasn't long before I was threatened, told to leave, warned that loving her was dangerous. I packed my things with trembling hands, but my heart felt heavy with a truth I couldn't ignore. I loved her deeply, painfully, entirely. Before I left, Ilara found me barefoot on the beach at dusk. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her breath shaky. "You have to go," she whispered, "before he does something terrible. I can't bear the thought of you being hurt because of me." I cupped her face gently. "I would stay. You know I would." She nodded weakly. "But I can't ask you to. I can't let you choose pain over freedom." We held each other for what felt like both a second and a lifetime. The waves washed over our feet like they, too, didn't want us to part. And then, with a voice barely audible, she said the words that shattered me. "Maybe in another life, we'll be allowed to love without fear." I left Thornbay the next morning, my heart torn open. But life is strange, it bends, it shifts, it surprises. Months later, I heard the news. Aldrin had left the town on a long voyage for business and never returned. Some said he got lost at sea. Others said he chose a new life elsewhere. Ilara was free. One misty morning, when spring had just begun to color the world again, I returned to Thornbay. I found her in the place where we first shared our laughter, the shoreline. She turned, saw me, and her face lit up with a joy that felt like sunlight breaking through a storm. "You came back," she whispered. "I never stopped wanting to," I said. She ran into my arms, and this time, there was no fear behind her breath, no shadows beneath her smile. We weren't a secret anymore. We were a beginning. And if you're still watching this, remember, love doesn't always arrive at the perfect time. Sometimes it arrives exactly when your soul needs it, messy, inconvenient, impossible, yet true. So if this story touched your heart even a little, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and help us spread more stories that remind people that love, real love, always finds a way.